Pray. Amen.
Amen. Have a seat. Good evening. We have an awesome worship experience tonight as we get to hear from Stuart and Ashley. Yeah, there they are. I see. Stuart and Ashley and their mission trip to Korea. So if y'all want to make your way up, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. We do want to let you know the Joy Group got to go to the fair this past Wednesday, and there was some fruit from that. One of Todd's longtime friends stopped him and said, "Hey, we have a choir and we're looking for a place to lead worship, to come and sing." And that is a William Carey choir. It's a small ensemble from William Carey. And we have invited them to come next Sunday night. So they'll sing for about 30 minutes. So you're not off the hook for memorizing your verse. We're still going to go through that. But for the first 30 minutes next Sunday night, we're excited because we're going to hear them sing, lead us in worship. So make sure you come back and be a part of that next Sunday night. Stuart and Ashley, we're just going to turn it over to you, and you lead as the Lord has you lead.
Okay, cool. I was trying to figure out, do I take the stand?
Do you want the stand?
No.
I mean, look, it's so, you can raise it.
Can you hear me?
Is it on?
It doesn't sound like that.
This one is.
Okay.
I'll give that one to you.
I guess I'm in charge.
Check. This, yeah, it's on.
Okay.
You're good.
Well, hello. Some of y'all know me because I went here forever and ever and grew up here. Yeah.
Oh, this one. Can you all hear me? Yep, there we go. Okay, cool. I'm Stuart, and this is Ashley Robinson. She's my wife. And obviously. And she was saying that she actually grew up here.
Mm.
Yep. And we're from the Jackson area. Y'all were supporting us for the last 2 years. We were in South Korea and Seoul, and we're glad to be back. We just got back in August. Is the PowerPoint up yet? Oh, not yet.
Yeah, just a second.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we have some statistics about Korea that come kind of in the beginning, but before it comes up, we can just talk about what our team was doing there. So Korea, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it, and you probably first think about the north one instead of the south one, but we were in the south one. And yeah, so South Korea is maybe not what some people remember, because a lot of people here have thought about it as far as the war goes. And it's changed so much since then. It's super advanced, really wealthy, and it's just a huge city life. And people there typically are atheist, or the statistics will be on there, but about 20% of people are Christian, 20% are Buddhist, and then the rest are mostly atheist. And our team was working on church planning, because even though 20% Christian seems like, okay, that's a decent amount. There are enough churches there that the churches can reach out, and that's true. But among the younger generations, there are actually just hardly any Christians at all. Like, our team was started because whenever they went to a college campus, they kind of did a poll, and about 2% of students said that they believed in God and regularly go to church. So even those who are from Christian families are leaving the church, and that's a pretty serious situation. So Korea might be kind of Christian now, but give it 2 generations and we don't know what will be going on in Korea. There might not be any Christians at all, just like their neighbors, Japan, China. And if you think about Asia and where Korea is, who it's surrounded by, it's really a huge blessing that it's a light for Christ right now. And so our team was trying to plant some new churches, reach younger people, and see if we can re-engage so that in the future generations, there are still believers who are also going out to reach other people in that area.
Yeah. So we actually, much louder than I thought it was going to be. We actually were planted in Seoul. That's where we were, and we started a church plant there. It actually started maybe a couple months before we got there.
Yeah, July 2019. We got there October 2019.
And it was in a house, which was one of our coworkers' houses. And it started off with a few people, and then by the end of it, we had about 20 people that are a part of it. And we also, though, were specifically called there to work with university students and people in their early 30s, because that was kind of our age group. So most of the people and the ministry we did with people in our neighborhood, or at the university which we attended. Actually, we went to a university called Sogang University, and we were learning Korean there. And so that gave us an in to be able to talk to people at the university and people around the area, and not just show up and be like, "Hey, I'm a missionary, missionary. I just am on campus because I'm a missionary. So it was a great way to communicate with people there and get to know people. Yep.
Yeah, our team was focused originally. We came in and the team had mostly Korean people actually, because the IMB actually has a lot of people who were born and raised in Korea, and then they immigrated to the States, became citizens, and go through the IMB as missionaries. So our team, when we first went, had literally only one other American and us, and then everyone was Korean. So it was really unique as far as a missionary team, because the people we were on a team with were the same people we were trying to reach. So there were some benefits, like they could help us understand the culture, know if we're doing anything offensive, which is very easy. There's lots of rules in Korea about like your etiquette and behavior. And so it's pretty easy to be too direct or offend people in many ways. They have 4 different ways you can speak to people. Like they have a most formal way, a kind of formal way, a polite way, and then a not polite way. And if you use the not polite way, it's like super rude, especially because it's all based on your age and your job. So yeah, we got led a lot by our leaders who were Korean, and they had a plan for us. We were in a huge center of the city, so a lot of big universities were surrounding us. And the plan was to kind of get different people on our team with each university and try to reach people at that university, because there are just thousands of students at them. And those universities are the places where young people go. And a lot of them were started by missionaries back in the very old days. And so some students have to attend chapel. Like I went to MC. If you go to MC, you have to attend chapel. Same thing. They're universities started by missionaries, but the students will be like protesting that, and they're not there for that reason at all. So yeah, we were at Sogang University, which was a Jesuit college, but it's one of their big top 10 universities in the country. And our other teammates were at Yonsei, and well, there were plans for more, but that's all that happened because of COVID. Yeah, there were more like Hongdae. Iwa. We had one at Iwa. Those are some of the, they're the top universities in the country. So a lot of people go there. And the original plan was to kind of meet students there, start some small groups for Bible studies, and see if we could get people who could be leaders and maybe start a church with them in the future. And because of COVID, a lot of that was really destroyed, because we went in October 2019.
Yes.
January 2020, COVID was there. We got it first. But it was kind of more controlled there. Is the PowerPoint gonna?
Yeah.
We'll just show pictures like later after we talk about it all. And we'll remind you who everybody is.
Oh,
Ooh,
there it is. Okay, cool.
I didn't want to get too far ahead and then you not remember what we're talking about.
Well, if you could skip to the next slide.
Yeah.
Let's see. How many slides? Oh.
Yeah, this one has all the info about...
Yeah, we could start with that one. We already went over the religious parts, but as it says on there, there's about 2 million university students, and just because of conditions of the work and how much they have to study and everything, it has the 4th highest suicide rate in the world. It's kind of a really dark place in that regard, and so we're trying to bring the light of Christ to the people for that purpose. Oh, you're good.
Only when it says refugee ministry, that's when we need to go black. But all the way up until then, all the pictures are totally okay to be shown. Yeah.
Thanks for asking.
We didn't have like big security restrictions because like Korea is a safe, secure place. But we did work with some other people that we can't talk about or post. Yeah.
Right. So let me think. The next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so this is our team's church plant that was started in our teammate's house, and this is what it looked like when we very first came. It was in their house, and we would kind of just have people sitting around, and it's pretty normal for Koreans to sit on the floor, so it wasn't weird for them to do so. And the second picture, after church, we would always eat lunch together. Like we'd call and order some fried rice or soup or something and all eat. It was a really special time, and the members got really close together like family. And that's pretty different from most Korean churches because they have mega churches. Like, I think the biggest one in the world is
It
there.
It's the biggest one in the world.
700,000 members, something like
Kyohay
that.
Full Gospel.
Yeah.
I think it has a couple million.
It has more members than we have,
actually.
like, in Jackson, Mississippi.
Yes.
So it's kind of mind-boggling to think of that, especially, like, being from Star Baptist Church, you know?
Yeah.
So for a Korean, a house church can seem kind of
Quaint.
weird at first.
Yeah.
But they like it because it's different and they can get to know people and it's more personal. So that's what the hope was, is to be able, you know, in a big church you might be able to, people might not notice if you don't come if there's 1 million people in your church. But if there's 20 people in your church, they're going to notice and talk to you. And discipleship can be a lot more personal.
Yeah. We really enjoyed being part of that church. As you can see on the picture on the right, we're all eating lunch together. We actually were having, so they have this, like, it's like Chinese food, but it's really like Korean Chinese food, kind of like how we have our Chinese buffets. We had jjajangmyeon and jampong, right?
Which is black bean noodles.
Which is black
and
bean
seafood
noodles.
soup.
They really like the black bean noodles and stuff,
Yeah.
black bean stuff. So, but it was great. We really loved the community and being part of that church. We actually have on the next slide, this is when it was in the house church, and then the cafe on the left, I actually would go there to go study, and I started getting to know the person that owned the cafe, and I found out they were closed on Sundays, and I was like, "Are you a Christian?" She said yes. And after going there for a little bit, she started tutoring me and Ashley for free, which was really nice. And our church was looking for a place to start, like, not just be in the house, because we were starting to expand. So they asked me if I knew anyone, and I said I knew her. And one of our teammates just asked, and she let us start having a church there. It didn't make us pay any rent, and we formed a really great relationship with them.
Yeah, and that place was great because we also had a different room. I think maybe the next slide has that too, but
The kids
there was
room.
a small room for kids to have a Sunday school. There were only a handful of kids, but you know, a handful of kids still need a little space to do their thing. And yeah, the cafe owners we like to call them people of peace, just people
Yes.
who are already seeking God and prepared for what He has, and they're willing to just be welcoming and help with the mission that He's given. And they said that they'd actually been praying when they opened the cafe for a chance to use it for the Lord. And I mean, we didn't expect like when our team leaders met with them and asked them if we could use the space, it was a long shot. Like, we did not think that'd be okay. And we fully intended to pay rent and everything like that. And they just, with open arms, just said to use it. And they also wanted to use it to host neighborhood events to help us do ministry. So that was one of the biggest things we saw God do while we were there, is just provide those people in the neighborhood and that space. And those people are still helping our team that's there do ministry. And can we see the next? Oh, that's our next church, yeah.
If you go back.
No, I think that's the next slide.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. But the pictures on the right are just like the back and the front of the inside of the church during a church service. That was actually, I think, our first church service in there, right?
That was Easter. I think it was Easter during, like, we hadn't been able to go for a while because of COVID, and that was the first time in person in a while, so everyone's got the masks, and which they still would today, but you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can go to the next slide now, though. So after a few months of, or I think a year of us going to, our church was called Namu Kyohay. We kind of decided there were a lot of missionaries that were already going there, and so we wanted to be a part of a different church and try to pour into members there and try to disciple members there. So we found a church that was right across the street from the university we attended, and it was this church, New Life Church. We actually found out about them through our boss. He knew the preacher there, and we started attending there. Ashley actually was telling her testimony up there in the right corner, in Korean, right? Or was it in English?
We said it in Korean, but we read it.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
We could read it, but, you know, the pronunciation was very special.
Yes. So the pronunciation's really hard. And we, through that church, actually started an English language ministry. And so we actually invited some of our fellow students from our Korean classes, and they would, we meet every week through Zoom. Did we use Zoom? We use Zoom, right? And we would just kind of all speak in Korean, and afterwards we would try to hang out with each other and be able to just kind of talk about just spiritual things. Even though my friends that I invited were actually Christians, so they actually would just come to events, and it was great. On the left, we had like a barbecue because it actually had a roof, so we would go up to the roof and have a barbecue together. And my Hong Kong, she's from Hong Kong. My friend from Hong Kong, my friend from Britain were there. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I guess I can look at that way. I keep wanting to turn around and look there. Anyway, but, and then on the one on the right is just us with some of the church members. We really got to know the pastor and a lot of the other church members, and actually I met a friend at a meetup who was Korean, but he'd also lived in America, and he'd been wanting to find a church. And so I recommended him to that church, and he became like a full-time member there and became really involved. And I met with him I think for a few months and did discipleship, and it was great.
Yeah, so at that church, we got a good taste of real, just 100% Korean church. And our team's church plant also was in Korean, but the pastor himself was one of our team members. So he's a fellow American, and he would preach in Korean. Yeah. But, he had to read it, and sometimes it was a struggle for him. And they're trying to find national leadership because we really didn't want, the IMB doesn't really stand behind just Americans coming and being all the pastors, because if we leave for any reason, the church should be able to stand for itself. And there should never be so much financial support or leadership thrown in that's just an IMB team that a church is crippled if we leave. So they're trying still to this day to get some of the church members to kind of step into some leadership roles and be in charge of that church, so that if anyone ever does leave or get reassigned, that it is just the community's church. And New Life Church already was just a Korean community church, and we got to learn a lot about Korean church customs, and because every country's going to do it a little different.
And we were the only Americans.
Yeah.
Everyone else was Korean.
It helped us as we did ministry with other Korean people, especially ones who had been in church and left it, because then we kind of knew where they were coming from, because we had some experience with what their churches were like. And yeah, before that, when we were at our team's church, we kind of didn't fully understand, because that church was a different style. Anyway, so yeah, those were the two churches that we were part of when we were there.
You can go to the next slide.
Okay, yeah, one major form of ministry we did. For us, it was important that we mostly would go find people, meet them, and become their friend, and then try to do ministry with them, have a Bible study, or share the gospel, obviously share the gospel. And to do that, we had to find opportunities, because Koreans, there are a lot of cults in Korea, actually, big cults. You might have heard of the Moonies, or in Korea, they call that same group the Mother God Church, and they have a lot of power. And so when you approach people on the street or something and you hand a tract or something, that's a method that's been there for a long time already. And people don't have a good response to it, because the people who do that are cults. And so younger people, the ones who have left church, they especially do not respond to that type of evangelism. So one way that we found that really works to meet people was to go to meetups. And you can find them online. There were several apps you can search for online that have meetups, and a lot of them were language exchanges. That was one benefit we had as foreigners, is people all study English and want to be better. And even if you're not, if you can't write an essay, that's okay. They don't want you to. They just want to talk. Speak in English with a native speaker. So we would go to meetups that were normally language exchange, and we'd practice our Korean a little bit. They'd practice their English. And then it was pretty easy to make a friend and share the gospel, especially if we told them, we're here working with the church. And then they'd ask, oh, well, why? And we could explain. So we got to share the gospel a lot at the meetups. And those pictures, the first one on the left, that is at Hwang Cafe, that place where our church got to start meeting. They started that this summer, after a long time of COVID, when we had these plans forever, but could never make any of them happen because of the restrictions, because it was very, very strict in Korea. We finally this summer got to meet up, and it ended up being very good. The ladies at the table, 2 of them are not believers, and 1 is a pastor's wife, and then there's Stuart, and another teammate. Yeah. So we did get to meet some people in the neighborhood that weren't believers who just wanted to improve their English, and I think that someone got to share with them after we left, but we personally didn't, because that was as we were leaving.
I shared with my friend.
Yeah, he's going to be on a.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
talk about it later. But yeah.
And then the other one, that was an art cafe, the one where we have a board game laid out. We played, what's the name of that game?
Was it Dead of Winter?
Yeah, it's like a zombie board
It's a zombie
game.
board game.
And we played it in Korean. It was an experience.
I already knew it in English, so I just had to sit there and be like, okay, I think I know what this means. And then we would just talk about it. Our friend, he was Korean, and his wife she's half American. So anyway, we figured it out.
Yeah, and the art cafe owners who hosted a meetup, their meetup was art. So you come in there and they give you some paper and colored pencils or paint, and you draw or you paint. And we thought that was a cool idea. And none of the people that went there were believers. So that was a cool place where we got to meet with them. And we even, the man whose face is like barely in the picture, he's an artist. He's the owner, and the lady next to him is his wife. And he invited us to his exhibition, and it was about robots. And he said that he felt like he was an analog on the inside, like he was broken. And Stuart got to share with them because of that.
Yeah, I see that as a gospel opportunity to talk about our brokenness. And he really, honestly, I can't remember was that the exact thing he said? He said something that was deeper than that, actually.
It was deeper,
But yeah.
I don't remember.
It was a great opportunity, and they were really good friends while we were there.
Yeah.
And then we had another meetup, too, that we had a picture of, we couldn't figure out how to get it on the slide for some reason, where we would go to this meetup, not that far from our house, and there'd be a lot of people that would go there and play games, and then you could, like, get some free drinks, not alcoholic drinks necessarily, but, like, tea and stuff like that. And people were super interested there because they were like, oh, why are you, like, Americans here for missions? Like, didn't people already come to Korea? Like, don't people already believe? And a lot of the Korean people felt the same way, and that was a great place to share the gospel with people and make some good context. We can go to the next slide. What's on the next one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we actually were part of a playground club at one point because there was a mother's Bible study where a group of mothers from the neighborhood would all get together, and we would go and take their kids to the playground, and we would have opportunities to share the gospel with them and play neat games with them, and then also just, watch them, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. So the one in the middle, did we do that after the Bible story about catching fish?
I think so. That was like the finale of Playground Club.
Oh, yeah,
so it was
yeah.
at a pool.
Yeah, so it was like a little pool, and they were fishing, like the fishers of men kind of thing. It was really cool. And then, what are some other games we played?
I don't remember the games, but
But
the
they
children,
related.
Yeah, like we would do the Bible study super, super short and tiny in English because the parents are really concerned that their kids get a good education and learn English. They actually, this is kind of a tangent, a short one though. So people there, they already go to school like all day, like way later than we go to school. But then they also send their kids to academies after school. Like we would just say after school activities, but it's more than that because ours can be just a club you're in voluntarily. A lot of times ours are sports. Theirs are never sports. It's always academics, and they pay for it. And so they'll go after school and take like piano and English and math and science, and just they'll get home at 9 p.m. when they're in elementary school after a whole day of school. And so the one way we would reach out is that the parents, since they're so concerned for their kids to be successful, like even Christian parents, they don't want to, even though they kind of feel the tug of, not living a worldly life, they also don't want their kids to be a failure when all the other kids are a success, and it's a lot of pressure for them. So this was a way we could help those Christian moms who really wanted their kids to improve their English, but we didn't make them pay for it. And anyway, so the academic life is very stressful and very hard for them. That's why the suicide rate is what it is. And yeah, we're hoping that if the kids can kind of get more of the gospel in their young years, that could help them as they grow up and maybe to be able to break those cycles or just, know that God is there with them even though their lives are busy, even though they're tiny.
Yeah. One of our teammates, actually, it was kind of her passion to do children's ministry. So she was always coming up with projects like this. Like before that, she had this theater project. So they were doing like kind of like mini plays, I guess, to kind of learn English while they were doing it. I don't have any pictures of that, but it was also a really fun thing that they did. You can go to the next slide. So we also did a lot of ministering in our neighborhood. Do you want to talk about the Halloween or fall?
We called it Candy Day because
Candy
Halloween
Day.
has a different connotation in Korea. Like, it's seen as a very spiritual, evil thing, and some people see it that way here too, for sure. So we just had a Candy Day event, which is a fall festival. Like, so we had cornhole and face painting, and we let them trick or treat on the street because our street had, like, basically our whole team. The IMB had property there from a very long time ago. So we all lived near each other, and we were like the street of foreigners. And the neighborhood people, like, they knew us and recognized us. And I think sometimes some of them knew, like, oh, those are some missionaries. And some people didn't, they weren't sure what kind of missionaries or what we're doing. So we liked to get to know them better and show them who we were. And this was like an American culture thing, which was interesting for them. But, you know, no spooky Halloween, just some candy and cornhole. And we had maybe like more than 50 kids come.
Yep.
And they did a gospel presentation for the kids and their parents. Yeah, and it helped a lot build relationships in the community. And then later, like that was last October, before COVID restrictions got a little stricter again. And then this summer when we started that English exchange with the cafe in our neighborhood, some of those people that we met there, they were at that because we had made that connection with them before. And so our team is hoping to still be able to do events like that when restrictions are better, and yeah, just have a positive presence in the neighborhood and be able to share the gospel with the families there.
And in the middle picture, I also went to a local university and I started playing basketball. And I met a guy there that I would play basketball with like once a week for a couple months. And I would take opportunities to try to share the gospel with him. And we met up a couple times. Kind of like once Corona started getting bad again, we kind of like weren't able to meet as much anymore. But I saw him
They
actually
roped it
before I
off.
left. Yeah, do what?
They roped off everything.
Yeah,
fun.
they did. They ripped off all the universities actually after a while, so I couldn't go play basketball there anymore. But it was a great opportunity to be able to share and meet people. And so, yeah. Can you go to the next one again?
This is the good part.
Okay, yeah.
We have a few slides of specific people that we want y'all to pray for. These are our friends that we had that are not believers, and we spent, a long time ministering to. And if you're our friends on Facebook, you probably saw pictures of some of them, but on Facebook, they're on social media as well. So we can't tell the missionary side of that because they can see it, and that would be awkward. So on the left, that's my friend. Her name is Hwang. She's actually an expat as well. She's Korean, but she lived in Nepal as a ballet teacher, but she's not a believer. And she had to come back home because of COVID, because Nepal had it more severely, and she wasn't sure if her visa was secure. And she and I would meet another missionary friend who was in Nepal. She hooked us up, and she said, hey, I went to a ballet class, and my teacher's Korean. She just went back to Seoul. Can you meet with her? She wants an English teacher. And I was like, yeah, of course. So we would meet up and just speak in English. And then when she found out I was learning Korean and wanted to be better, she would also help me with my Korean, which was nice because I needed help. And we were able to have a lot of really great conversations. And I was able to share the gospel with her in Korean more than one time. Because one time she was just bound and determined that we would go to a missionary house.
Yes,
It's a museum of some Western missionaries who had been there in the early 1900s. And she knew I was a missionary, so I thought it was funny she wanted to go there, even though she's not religious. So anyway, I've talked to her a lot. I've spent about a year being her friend, and she's a really sweet and amazing person. And could you just pray for her? Because she's a little spiritual, and she's always seeking she works on meditation and reading self-help books, but she never really knows what's going to make her happy, and she's always seeking the next thing to make her happy. So pray for Hwang.
Yep. And then the guy in the middle, his name is Kipyo, and I actually knew him for about 7 months before we became friends, because whenever we went to the bank, there was a person at the front, in the reception, and he was the only person who spoke English really, and so he would help all the foreigners with things. And after a while, I would go there so many times a week, and I would talk to him. And I 7 months of being there, I was like, so, I've known you forever. Can we be friends? So I just asked him, would you like to hang out? And we went and hung out, and I told him what I was there for and everything. And we had some really good conversations. And then for the rest of the time when we were in Korea, I would hang out with him maybe once or twice a week. And we would have just spiritual conversations and just talk about life, and really got to know him really well. He works at the bank, but he is like a rocker on the side. So that's what he wears. Like every time I see him, he like wears all black and like has a bandana and puts earrings in. And he was really awesome. But he is someone that I've been praying for a really long time. And he has a Buddhist background, but he's not actually Buddhist. He has had some bad experiences with the church in the past, though, and so he was really hesitant to talk about or to want to do anything with the church, but we would talk about it a lot. And so if you could just pray for my friend Kipyo, that I would continue to be able to have some good conversations with him. I kind of like got him connected with some people like as I was leaving, and I just keep praying for him. The guy on the right, his name is Hwang. We actually met him when we started doing the meetup at our cafe, which we didn't get to do to the last few months we were there, but it was great. And he was actually a local police officer, and so I got to know that and get to know him better. And it was just really funny because I would never have met him before or done anything, and we'd have really good conversations, and I was helping him learn English, but also we were meeting outside of it to be able to talk about the gospel and everything. Well, at first it wasn't the gospel, it was just get to know him. But yeah, if you could pray for Hwang. He's like in his 50s, but he's super, super, like...
He still runs marathons.
He still does like lots of like crazy stuff, so pray for him to not get injured / for him to come to know the Lord. It was funny, there was actually a church that was called Kyohay, like, so his name and then church, and I'd joke with him, like, so is that your church? Do you go there? And we'd always laugh, because it means like wellspring of truth or something. I think that's what his name means. So if y'all could pray for him, and then if you go to the next slide, we got some more people. Well, next 3 slides, I think, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's my friend. If you're on my Facebook, you definitely saw her. Her English name was Lucy, but then she changed it. But her name is Kyohay. She's Catholic, but she doesn't really she does not know the Lord. And she just has a really hard time with, like, her mental state and her emotions. So it was kind of, sometimes she would ghost us for a really long time, like me and the other girl teammates as well. We were all friends with her. And then she would come back and hang out with us, like, kind of excessively. But she is definitely seeking the Lord, and we got to have not just spiritual conversations or sharing, but we got to have Bible study with her a few times, and she has great questions, but it's just hard for her because she kind of chose to live a different way than other Korean people. Like, in Korea, you kind of have one path of life, and if people choose a different way, they're really looked down on in society. Like here, if you decide you're gonna like do a trade and not go to college, or you're gonna get married young or get married older, there's different ways you can live and people not just cast you off. But in Korea, there's kind of one way to live and not be cast off by society. And she's not really living that way because she didn't finish university, or she doesn't live with her parents. And over there, it's normal that you live at home until you get married, unless you have a really good reason, like your university's far away, or you just have a ton of money, or you're already 30 and you've been working. But everyone else just lives with their parents. And so she had a hard time with society, and people don't really accept her very well. And that's why she likes to hang out with foreigners like us. But we met her at that meetup, one of the meetups we went to, and she just automatically, like, the Holy Spirit was just drawing her. Because not only to us, but our teammates that went as well, she said, you people seem like really good, like, people. I want to be around you guys. And then she just kind of, like, joined us for everything. And even with that candy day, she helped us put it on. But then she would, like, help us put on an event, and then she would go away and, like, not talk to us for 5 months. So it was really hard to work with her sometimes.
I think that she was just, like, she'd feel really convicted in those moments. Whenever we would do something like that, she'd be really convicted, and she'd be like, oh, this is so good, like, I really want to learn more, and then she'd be gone. And then a couple months later, she'd come back, we'd have another thing like that, and then she'd be gone.
And that's just part of ministry. I mean, sometimes people, when the Lord is working on them, it's not something personal. It's the Lord working on a person. And so they might, when they kind of want to say yes to the Lord, they'll be all open arms. But then if they start telling the Lord no, they start telling other people no as well. So anyway, pray for her. And I mean, just people like her who have chosen not to live the basic way that you have to live in Korea to be successful, because it's really hard for them and people don't help them out or treat them well if they've chosen to live a different way. Yeah, we can go to the next person. Yeah.
So these are our friends. It's Nara and her husband and her 2 children. That's us with them.
Yeah. Yeah, so this person is, her sister lives in our neighborhood in Korea, and her sister and her are believers, and super strong believers, but she married a non-Christian man, and at first that seemed like it was fine for her, but now they're having a hard time, like, he doesn't want to raise their kids in the church and stuff, and she really desires his salvation. And so she would ask us to come and hang out with her and her husband because she wanted him to talk to us and like for us to share with him. So yeah, pray for her because she has a hard time with, she loves her husband, but she wants to raise her children to follow the Lord, and he's their father, and he doesn't want to. So just pray for that, and he's a nice, good person, but just pray for him to know the Lord, because you can be a good person in the world's eyes, but it doesn't mean anything in the end, and yeah, their children need to be raised to know who the Lord is. Yeah, pray for that family. And then, is that the last picture of friends?
This is
the last one.
Yeah, so the person on the left is actually my friend that I met at a coffee shop near our university, and he actually is a believer. We had many conversations, and then one day he's like, oh yeah, like, I believe in that. And I was like, what? Like, we've had this conversation a couple times now. Anyway, so his name is Sun Woo, and he is a believer, but it's like his family is, but his dad is not. So we had some really good conversations about that, and he's really praying really hard for his dad to come to faith, because really what it would be like is his family would go to church and his dad would just go do something else. And it's like that for a couple families. And around here also, like there are a lot of families where the dad isn't active in the church, the mom and the children are. But he actually just started a business with his dad recently. He's doing what am I trying to say? It's where the nurses go to people's houses and take care of them. Yeah, he's doing that. Anyway, so if you could just pray for Sun Woo and for his dad's salvation. He's been praying really hard for a long time for that. And then on the right is actually Ashley and me and our classmates. We all went to a dinner together. And some of those classmates I was pouring into for a while. One of them, his name is Charlie, and he's British. And he's never really grown up as being religious, but like we had some really good conversations about religion. But then every once in a while we'd have one of those, and then he would back off for a little while, and then I would have some good conversations again. It's kind of like, it's how things are in ministry a lot of the time. And then my other friend Anthony also, we'd be able to have some conversations, but I didn't get to see him as much. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, so the next few slides we're going to have to not live stream because they're a little more sensitive. But yeah, basically those are just ways we were able to do ministry and how we would meet people. And it can be harder in a city because people are not as trusting or as friendly in cities. Like, in Star, if you walk around, you wave at people you don't know. In cities, you don't even look up and see people you don't know because there's like so many of them, why bother? So getting to know people was a huge struggle, but those are ways we were able to. And yeah, the Lord did some amazing things for helping us make friends and share with them and just show us what life is like for young Korean people. Yeah, and then... Do we tell them now?
Tell them now.
Bye, Facebook people.
Bye,
We're
Facebook
sorry.
people. Thanks for coming.
If you wanted to know this, you should have come.
Actually.
I'm just kidding. I'm just messing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just go to the next one.
Yeah, so the other stuff we did, our team worked with South Koreans. That was our focus. But, we also had the opportunity to work some with North Koreans, and we'll just call that refugee ministry because they are refugees. and they're like legal refugees in South Korea. So they have gone through the process. They can be students there, they can get jobs, but life is really hard for people who have come down from there. And the policy is you don't ask. Don't ask questions. Like, we don't need to know how they got from there.